Yo, what up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel for those of you that are a part of our awesome community and are already subscribed and all that good jazz. But if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We get into the entire multiverse of pop culture, whether that's music, anime, TV shows, anything all around that and in between. We talk about it around here. Make sure you're clicking on the buttons below the video and everything like that. But we got something special coming for May the 4th be with you. We are huge Star Wars fans around these parts, and we figured we would switch it up and do something a little more unique and not necessarily do something directly related in the Star Wars canon or franchise, if you will, but something that's more of a love letter to the franchise, something that's a celebration of everything about the franchise. And even though this predates the sequel trilogy and the whole kind of new Disney Lucasfilm era, this definitely still has a lot of love for everything that came before. And I'm talking about the 2009 comedy, one of the most underrated comedies that come out in the last, I would say, 15 to 20 years. We're talking about 2009's Fanboys, directed by Kyle Newman, starring some very awesome underrated actors, some actors that have risen to prominence, and some all-time legends in their own right in and out of film. We're going to get into all that and more right now. Now, let's get into this bad boy. We're talking about one of my personal favorite comedies. And as I mentioned earlier at the top of this thing, it is a love letter to the first original trilogy of Star Wars. And this film takes place in mid 1998, before the prequels, when everyone was over the moon, excited, and the hype was bigger than ever for episode 1, The Phantom Menace, in 1999, baby. May of 1999 when that premiered. One of the first films I ever saw in the theater as a youngin' back in the days. You know what I'm saying? Born in the mid-90s, 90s kid right here. So I was a part of that hype train. And you got these main characters of the film, a group of 4 guys and their homegirl, and they're all they're all counting down the days and hours and minutes to the release of the brand new prequel, the first Star Wars film in 15 or 16 years by that point, since 1983. And the film picks up with a party, and everyone's kind of hanging out and reuniting, if you will. And the main cast of characters are made up of some awesome, talented actors and fun characters in their own right. Eric Butler, played by Sam Huntington, who you might recognize from some other cult classics, such as Detroit Rock City, back in 1999. Funny enough how that all kind of comes around. He was in a movie set when this movie was set, even though this movie came out a decade later. So funny how all that comes back around. You also have the great Dan Fogler in here as Hutch, before he really hit it big with the Fantastic Beasts movies and other things like that. He recently played Francis Ford Coppola in the Paramount Plus series, if I'm not mistaken, The Offer, which is all about the making of the Godfather films and everything like that, or the Godfather, the original Godfather film, I should say. And you got Jay Baruchel, which you might recognize from movies like She's Out of Your League, and most famously, This Is the End, and stuff like that. He's in here as the character of Windows. You have the great Kristen Bell from tons of different things: Veronica Mars, Bad Moms, Mean Girls. The list goes on and on. You got her in here as Zoe, their homegirl, kind of the Black Widow of their Avengers. You know, kind of the Leia of the group, if you will. And you got Chris Marquette coming in here as Lionel, who you might also recognize from movies like Just Friends, and what's another one he was in? One of my personal favorite horror films of all time, baby, Freddy vs. Jason. And yeah, if you're curious and you want to watch a whole retrospective / review of that, let me know, and I'll send that your way. YouTube copyright got in the way of that one, but that was a whole half-hour retrospective / review of Freddy vs. Jason. So if you're interested, let me know. I might send that your way. But yeah, getting back to the task at hand here. Stay on target. And you got some other great cameos in here. But before we get into those cameos, got to get into the main plot for those of you that don't know, that may not have seen this film. And it's a bunch of buddies getting together, having some fun, reuniting after a while, after they haven't really been hanging out as much after high school, because one of the main characters, Eric, he's kind of moved on and got into into becoming a car salesman in the auto industry, and his dad is getting ready to pass over the company to him, and he's over there, trying to grow up, if you will, and give up on his dreams and all that other nerdy stuff. You know what I mean? Give up being a fanboy, if you will, and just chase the same old, tired old thing that grow up, get a job, and same old thing, right? And all these other guys, Hutch and Windows and Lionel, they're still full on fanboys, embracing the geekdom, embracing the fandom, doing what they love. You got Windows and Hutch over there. Windows owns the comic book shop that they work at and everything like that. I'm not sure what Lionel does for work. They never really get into that. But the one thing that really brings these characters together in the film, and I think is one of the best parts about it, really, when it comes to the writing and the overall storyline, is Lionel, or not the fact that he has this disease, but the fact that they go out of their way to take him on this adventure to have a last hurrah for their buddy before he eventually, moves on to the other side, because they're Lionel, Chris Marquette's character, he actually has some form of cancer, and and they've done everything they can through chemotherapy and other things like that. Interesting that he's not bald. I do find that kind of interesting, but don't have to necessarily get that deep into it per se for a comedy of all things, especially. But he there's nothing else they can do, and he is eventually going to pass away, and in fact, is probably going to pass away before episode 1 drops next year in '99. So they gotta go through with this crazy plan that they always wrote ever since they were kids, where they would go across country from their home state of Ohio over to San Francisco, California, go to the legendary location that is known as the Star Wars Mecca, aka the Skywalker Ranch, steal the episode 1 rough cut, steal the film print, and watch it before anyone else all around the world, any other Star Wars fan around the world, has seen the film, perhaps even the actors themselves. And this is their big plan. One last hurrah. This is their Death Star. This is the road trip that they're making. This is the mission to get the plans from some girl that Windows is talking with online. And this is back in the late 90s. So you didn't have Tinder. You didn't have that swipe right and swipe left. So online dating was even sketchier than it is now. Could you believe it? And he's apparently going to get all the plans and all these things from this girl he's been talking to and dating online for the Skywalker Ranch. They're going to make that cross-country road trip and get those, and get in there, get the plans, get to that rough cut, and steal that bad boy and watch it before anyone else has ever had the chance to lay their eyes on it. And this is when Eric gets back with the boys, makes the plan, and talks to Lionel and tells him, hey, man, it's time for us to get back together. Let's have this last adventure. Let's make it count. Let's try to make things right before, things happen the way they do. And Lionel didn't even want to tell Sam. I mean, sorry, not Sam. That's the actor's name. Eric. Hutch and Windows knows because they remain tight all this time. But over the last several years, Eric has kind of grown apart from the group, and Lionel didn't even want to tell him about the actual diagnosis. So that was another element to the film that really helped ground everything from all the over-the-top antics and shenanigans and all the fun adventures and gags that are to be had. And there are some fun-ass adventures and gags to be had. Like how they run into freaking Seth Rogen twice in this film, how he plays dual characters, one being a huge Star Trek nerd over in the hometown of where Roddenberry is from, or whatever, the guy that created Star Trek. They go over there, fuck up a whole statue with Captain Kirk and Khan, and get into this whole big brawl of Star Wars fans versus Star Trek fans. You got Windows over there yelling for timeout, and then you got Eric coming in for the save and getting everyone out of there. And then they end up going back on the road, and then they end up running into Danny Trejo's crazy ass as the chief, smoke a bunch of peyote, and trip out for a while. And then they even run into some of the Star Wars royalty themselves. Once they end up getting into trouble and have to get bailed out of jail by Zoe, they end up running into Billy D. Williams' character, who's actually friends with Eric's father in the film. Everything like that. You get a quick cameo of Carrie Fisher as the doctor that helps Lionel along the way in the road trip when he starts feeling sick and ends up passing out and whatever. You got the William Shatner pops up in this thing. Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes, baby. Jay and Silent Bob in the flesh up in here in a very, very edgy cameo. I won't describe it here. I'll let you discover that for yourself if you haven't seen it already. You even got Darth motherfucking Maul up in here, Ray Park, and you got the great Craig Robinson, and so many more cameos galore up in this thing. But the Seth Rogen cameo is probably the funnest of them all because he plays the dual characters of Roach, the pimp guy over there in Vegas, once they actually get the plans from Shatner, get the floor pans and the passcode keys and everything, and get the full access over there to get into the Skywalker Ranch, once and for all, and everything like that. And you got all these different twists and turns and fun gags that are to be had throughout the film. But I just love all the Star Wars references throughout the dialogue, the stickers, the T-shirts, and everything like that. How he even has the R2-D2 thing that comes up out of the car when he has the whole hyperspace button, which is essentially nitrous. Watch out, Vin Diesel, before Fast and Furious ever got their hands on it. So I love that whole element with Hutch's van and the whole original New Hope kind of poster design that he has detailing on the side of the van. I thought was so sick. And Ethan Suplee's cameo is like this, like almost like John Campea-esque type of internet personality before that thing became like a really huge thing that they end up getting a lot of the star, ends up being the uncle to the girl that Windows was talking to, and all that. And there's just so much fun to be had with the film, man. So many great trivia questions to get out of situations, and all these different ways that like Dan Fogler's character is quoting all these different Star Wars lines, like, "Oh, what have we here?" And you got a lot of nerve showing up around here after what you did. You know what I mean? I love all the Lando lines and references and everything like that. But yeah, man, there's so much fun to be had with this film. It's so heartwarming with the storyline between Lionel and them trying to have one last hurrah for their buddies. And even at the end, after he gets access to finally see the movie, after George Lucas ends up getting them caught at the Skywalker Ranch, and Lucas finds out his diagnosis and everything and why they did it, he ends up giving Lionel full exclusive access to see the film in his own private screening at the Skywalker Ranch while the guys wait for him on the outside. He doesn't reveal anything or spoil a thing. And then we pick up pretty much a year later in 99, in May 99, I should say, at the premiere of Phantom Menace. Lionel has unfortunately passed on to the other side, but the gang is all together. Everyone's cosplaying. You got Windows dressed up is Obi-Wan Kenobi, essentially. And then you got Kirsten Bell's character, Zoe, dressed up as, Leia from Return of the Jedi. Yeah, and then you got all that fun stuff going on. Eric ended up publishing his comic. Hutch is opening up his detailing business, the Hutch Touch, and all that good jazz. You know, the whole sappy movie ending cliches and everything. And then they ended up with wait, guys, what if it sucks? You know, and it's like a whole reference to how a lot of people felt that way after they had seen episode 1 back in the day, and how a lot of people were under the impression for years, and some still are, that the prequels do indeed suck, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I do think they are lesser films to the originals, if I'm being honest. But I have a lot of love and have a lot of fun for them, obviously, growing up on them and whatnot. And there's some lot of redeeming qualities and awesome lore and characters that they built and laid a foundation that we got to expand upon through all the expanded universe and extended canon things like Clone Wars, Rebels, and all the new Mandoverse stuff going on Disney Plus these days with the live action shows with Star Wars. So it's really cool to see how they were able to build off of kind of our knowledge after the fact of seeing the prequels, and harkening back to when the Star Wars fans were kind of united and were all universally excited about new Star Wars content, and were starved for official Star Wars content on the screen. It had been 15 years, 16 years. It had been a long time, and fans were just chomping at the bit to go see it. And I sometimes miss that feeling, man. The last time we kind of had that was in between Revenge of the Sith and Episode 7, The Force Awakens in 2015. So I do kind of miss those days of the hoorah, kumbaya, let's just love Star Wars and have a good time and talk about it and have a fun debate. Now it's like fucking political debate of like Republicans versus Democrats and shit. It's crazy, bro. But I love Star Wars. Always going to love Star Wars. Wanted to do something a little bit different here for May the 4th be with you. And it's crazy all the stuff they went through behind the scenes to get this movie out there. The Weinsteins were notorious for fucking up different projects that they were bankrolling and for meddling in way too much and making them change things and putting things on hold and getting things shelved and having things delayed from release. And this project was no different. It didn't get shelved, thank God, but it did get backed up for about a year or two until it actually released, and it took another year or two on top of that to get it on home video release and everything. So this movie definitely did not get its just due when it dropped back in 2008, 2009, but I really wish it would have got the right marketing campaign for it, because I think at that time, when the Star Wars fandom was hungry again for more and wasn't getting anything outside of animated content and hadn't even gotten the majority of that at the time, I really think this movie would have been a huge hit at the time if they marketed it the correct way, when more raunchy, fun kind of hangout movies and raunchy comedies were still kind of a thing, and comedies were still kind of running things before Hollywood became so uber IP driven the way it has been 2010s now into the 2020s now. I think this movie really would have had enough real estate if it was marketed correctly to really blow up and be one of those next big comedies of this generation. But it's got its its cult following. It's going to grow as time progresses. But I want to hear from y'all what you think about this film, if you've seen it, down below. And what's your favorite thing about the Star Wars films between the prequels and the original, films? We don't have to talk about any of the other stuff if you don't want to. Let me know when you discovered Star Wars, what you love the most about it, and what you're going to do to celebrate May the 4th. You should be watching this on May the 4th be with you, so I hope you have a good time taking in some Star Wars content, whether that's movies, TV shows, comic books, video games, however you want to celebrate it. You have fun celebrating it. Let's just enjoy Star Wars and have some positive discussions about it. Whether we agree or disagree, let's just keep it civil. Let's just have fun. Thank you for checking out this latest review. We got a lot more retro reviews coming at you. We got some latest releases coming out as well, catching up on some fairly modern releases between movies and TV shows, horror movie stuff, more retro reviews. We got a lot of stuff coming on the channel. Stay tuned. Don't sleep on any of it. We'll catch you again real soon. Appreciate you for watching. Peace out.